Hello everyone! So, yet another bloody book tag. Here we go. This is the Crazy Book Buying Obsession tag, and I believe it was created by Jack, so I'll link him in the doobly-doo on my pants. And this one has also been doing the round on BookTube, and it sounds very apt for all of us, I should think. So, here we go. Question number 1, to which the answer is obvious. Do you have an obsession with buying books? Yes. Question number 2. When, where, and how often do you buy books? It honestly depends. Like, I don't have a set. I never have a set agenda, but it's almost always by accident if I'm purchasing books. So I can't predict when or where it will occur, but it's always something that shouldn't happen because I don't have the money to do so, and I do not have the books shelf space, as you can see, to accommodate the books. So I also have got so many to read that I do not have the time to read them. So yeah, just always occurs when it shouldn't. Usually if it happens en masse, it'll be online, so the book depository, and it'll be for like a special occasion, Christmas or birthday essentially. Or if I come into some large sum of money at the one time, then I'll be like, book buying. Yeah, en masse it really only occurs online because it's so much cheaper and it's free shipping. So, but any other time it's just if I'm browsing in like a store like Big W, which is just a kind of big general store, and the books are cheaper there, or if I'm at a second-hand store where the books are cheaper, then if I have some cash and I'm left alone with the books for too long, then I might pick some up, even though I shouldn't. And the second part of that question is, do you go with anyone else or are you by yourself? If I'm with other people, it's odd because I can be either discouraged or encouraged to get books if I've got other people with me. Often they'll usually rein me in and say, "Nay, do you really need those books, and do you have the money?" And my friends are good in that way. They keep me steady. They're rather like my parents in moments of need. So usually if there's someone else with me, I won't buy stuff, usually. If left to my own devices, then anything can happen, so it's not safe for me to be on my own anywhere near books that can be purchased. Question number 3. What kind of things attract you to books when browsing through them? I'm not nearly as much of a cover whore as I think most people are, mainly just because I've learnt my lesson from that. I learnt my lesson from that years ago, and I know that pretty covers do not equal good books. So whilst I'll pick them up and look at them, 9 times out of 10, at least in YA, a pretty cover equals a really bad story, or a really bad sounding story, or just a really cliched story. And most of them are really predictable and the same kind of thing, especially if it's a paranormal romance kind of book. Then they'll almost always have quite attractive looking covers, but you've read that same plot in 10 other books that are sitting right next to it. So I try not to get attracted by covers because I know how misleading they can be. So I will more so look for certain genre. The second part of this question was that is there a specific genre of books you automatically go and look at? I'll look at YA in general, but I'll try and find fantasy-ish stuff. High fantasy is usually good. Even in YA, it's usually a safe bet. Fairy tale retellings for me are a very safe bet, or at least something like, you know, a topic of interest for me all the time. Yeah, I'll look at dystopian sometimes, just depends. It all really depends on what's on the back of the blurb and whether or not I know the author or not, and if I can trust the opinions of other authors if they're on there. And yeah, it's just a lot of stuff informs what I'll pick up, but I'm often usually actually really distrustful of pretty covers these days, so I'll try and stay away from those. But in terms of genre, yeah, fantasy, just fantasy in general is always what I'll gravitate towards rather than realistic fiction. Question number 4. Do you prefer to buy new, used, or a mix of both? Really a mix of both. I mean, ultimately new would be best, but I love cheap. I'd much rather buy a nice enough looking book that I can get for as cheap as I possibly can, because I simply don't have the money to be spending Australian book prices, like to be purchasing at Australian book prices, which are insane. So I'll gladly buy used books if they're just that much cheaper. I'm happy to do that. And I'm not too much of a stickler for what kind of condition they're in. Obviously they have to look okay and be held together and stable and whatnot, but I'm not really fussy if they've got crinkles and stuff. It doesn't bother me. Question number 5. How much are you willing to spend on books each month? I don't know. I can't really. It should be nothing. It should be no money spent. None. but if I had to allocate myself a certain amount of money to spend on books each month, it wouldn't be more than $20, and that would only be if I could get a few books for that price, so if I went to a second-hand bookstore or something. But even then I'd still feel very guilty for that $20 that was spent, so yeah, I shouldn't be buying books at all, is the end of the story, really. Question number 6. Have you ever gone on any book buying bans? Not knowingly, and I've never set them for myself, but ultimately every day is me trying to tell myself to go on a book buying ban, really. Whenever I'm in a store, it's me telling myself, no, do not buy things. So I've never set one for myself, but it's always in the back of my mind that I should not be buying anything. So, question number 7. How long does it take you to get around to reading recently bought books? It could indeterminate. It could be forever. I can't count the amount of books that I've bought, like very excited to get them home and to get them read, and you know, sincerely passionate about getting my hands on them, and then goodness knows how long it took me to read them. Months, could even be a year or two. Yeah, I'm not good at reading immediately, even if I'm super duper excited about something, and I'm not good when I force myself to read material. That never goes well. So yeah, it's all a matter of chance, really, and what my mood is. Wrong page, there we are. Question number 8. Do you prefer to buy a lot of shorter, cheaper books, or just a few longer, more expensive ones? Well, neither of those things really, because ultimately what would be ideal for me would be if I could get along, like a bigger book like this for cheap, because I prefer my books to be longer than shorter. I'd rather get the possibility of there being too much information rather than not enough. I hate finishing a book and feeling like there could have been so much more content and stuff going on. You could have had an extra 150 pages to add to that story and those characters and that, so I'd always much rather have a longer book, but the cheaper I can get it, the better. Cheap, cheap, cheap. I need cheap books. That is what I always seek. Question number 9. Anything else to say about having a book buying obsession? It's not healthy. I mean, at the end of the day, as far as addictions go, I think buying books is certainly one of the safer things you could claim to be an addict to. But it still eats into your money and weighs down your bookshelves and takes up... It's not that it takes up time, because of course time spent reading is always a positive thing and an enjoyable thing. But for me at least, just on a personal note, it really adds a level of guilt and pressure, which for me, because I feel guilt so easily and I'm a natural worrywart, I stress so easily, having one more thing that should be an enjoyable leisurely activity, having it be something I feel pressured to do, is not good. So yeah, being obsessively always buying books just because I like the feeling of it is good. Like, I love the feeling of looking for and hunting down and purchasing books, but the aftermath is that I'm home with more books that I still have to read. So yeah, it doesn't always end in my feeling too fantastic about myself and my actions. So whilst I'm proud to be a bookaholic, it's also not necessarily a very good thing, at least for me, and you know, my mindset and how I respond to stuff. And question number 10 is, who are you tagging? I'll have a think, see who has not done this tag or been tagged, and I'll try and put some names in the doobly-doo in my pants. That is all for now. Good night!